Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special segment of This Is My Story with our own Kelly Marie. You know Kelly. Kelly is such a veteran at telling her story that we wanted to change it up a little bit because I think there's so much insight. She is such a powerful business leader. She is making ripples in the world, but having the conversations from a different perspective that most people are afraid to. We're having conversations about mental health, about wellness and what that looks like. We're gonna go a little deeper today. And so we want you just to come behind the scenes. This is girl talk right here. But we wanted to let you know how important it is that we have the conversations about breakthrough and what that looks like, because everybody's breakthrough is different. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here.
So I may cry,
Okay.
and I'm saying that now so that I don't cry. Like if I say it, then it won't happen.
Right.
So I may cry.
Okay.
That should be good.
Okay. That's so good. So let's talk about, it's been quite a few years. I mean, when we first launched, was that in 2018, I think? The very first time we launched, maybe before that.
Time flies.
Yeah. And it's been incredible to watch you share a story. So even when we first met, in a non-traditional sense, connected to ministry, doing all of the work. But I just believe when we first connected, God gave us a divine relationship, and I just love you with all of my heart.
It was very, very special.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody like that.
Yeah.
So I treasure that.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, and it's been funny because in the beginning you were like, I'm not talking about that. We're not having a conversation. It's like, I hear you. I hear what you asking me, and I hear what you're telling me to do.
I don't think so.
We're not doing that. So let's talk a little bit about the resistance around breakthrough, because I think that people think breakthrough is pretty much, which we know it's not. We'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that resistance when it comes to, girl, I need you to get your breakthrough. I see where you're struggling and I want to help you through that. Where does that resistance come from? What does that look like?
It's that tension, that's what it feels like, that back and forth, that pull. And you don't know what's on the other side, right? Wherever you are right now is comfortable. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's familiar. Right, like I know how to change my pillow sheets after I done cried and snotted on the pillow all night. I don't know what it's gonna be like on the other side of this if I actually do the thing that I need to do. Like, am I still gonna be crying and snotting my pillow? Yes, you will still be crying.
Right.
But you don't know, right? And so it is the brain actually prefers the stability of what it knows versus whatever is on the other side of that thing. Right, so we fight ourselves. And so when we talk about, and pastors talk about it all the time, we've preached on it, we've taught on it in Bible study, the push through, not wondering and worrying about what tomorrow will bring, not wondering and worrying about how God is gonna work, or not wondering and worrying about how our relationship is gonna work out, or a job, or whatever, and just moving forward. But that process, the actual doing, because it sounds real good. Mm-hmm. Right, and it's attractive. Like, I want to be free.
Yeah.
I
want to be over
drop all these chains.
Right.
I don't want none of it. Right, but no, these chains, but but I don't know anything else. Mm-hmm. Maybe just can you hold part of the chain and make it lighter, and then maybe I'll let it go. Mm-hmm. Right, so it's that piece. It's that not knowing, both from a personality, lifestyle, understanding who you are side, and from the actual science of how the brain works.
Wow, that's so good, because there's so many people who want it, but like you said, they're not willing to go through the process. They compare themselves to other people's breakthrough, what that might look like, and the unknown, right? So we don't know what freedom really is until we experience it, but there's a journey to your freedom. And that is so key to what you said. So I remember the first time you stood live on stage and shared your story. And it was such a vulnerable place for you. So in sharing your story, the vulnerabilities around that, I want to talk about that, because when we look at the foundation of breakthrough, once you get past the resistance, we're saying, you know what, I'm going to just go through the journey. Now there comes the vulnerability in the journey. So talk about that vulnerable place that is required for the breakthrough. Oh, we about to free y'all today.
Man, so for me, right, it's always been easy to tell the story, like the facts of what has happened. I can do that all day. But to add emotion, how was I feeling through that thing? That is a whole nother story, right? It's a difference between, you walk outside and the sun is shining. That's a fact. You walked outside and the sun is shining. versus you walked outside and as soon as the sun hit your face, it took you back to a place where this thing happened or that thing, it was the best day of your life or the worst day of your life, or you had a wonderful day with a loved one, and every time the sun shines, it takes you back to that day. So you start to hate the sun, even though you love the sun. And then you're conflicted, not in the biblical sense of, double-minded. I'm just talking about real life. Right. This is how the brain, body, mind, this is how we work, how we operate, right? And so to be able to shift into emotion required more therapy, like straight up therapy for me, already in therapy, but shifting and telling my story to include all of it was a lot. And we talk about the process or that feeling of breaking through, but not all of those other pieces, like what's required. Like after you go through that moment, because I really feel like it's a moment.
It is.
And it's not necessarily a moment like I made it, but it could be a moment like I made it, right? You may not feel it when it's happening, but you may feel it after it happens, but it's still a moment. But you may need support in place.
Love that.
Right, there were emotions I had never dealt with. I knew they were there and then I would have to deal with them eventually because I was on that path of self-discovery, right? I made it a commitment. I made a commitment to myself to do whatever I needed to do, to learn whatever I needed to learn, to cry whatever I needed to cry. But I still needed the support in place. And that's not everybody, right? And I deal with I've just recently come to the conclusion that I'm not normal. And so that, it took me a minute. And I'm like, wait, so everybody don't think like this? So no,
and that's real, right?
Right. I'm like,
so the breakthrough for you in this moment is I'm not normal.
Yeah.
Right? And to know that is absolutely okay.
And it's normal.
And it's normal that
not be
right. And God made you that way.
Right, purposely. Right. And so I think, again, for me, having a mental illness and not really understanding what is healthy Kelly and what is unwell Kelly. Because unwell Kelly really feels like healthy Kelly, right? Like I still feel good. Oh, did I touch you? I didn't. I didn't mean to. But I felt, like, mental note to self, when you cuss people out, you are not well. Right? Right. Because it felt perfectly normal in the moment. Right? So the next time, I'm like, wait. Okay, I'll be right back. Right? So it is setting myself up for success through the breakthrough. Through the breakthrough. So knowing that I was in an emotionally vulnerable place, feelings were raw, talking about them, unheard of. Again, I've been telling my story for decades, but working with you and that's not enough.
Right.
That's not it. That's not the actual story, Kelly. But I'm fairly certain I was there. That really is the story.
Right.
But for you to push and pull out that piece that I needed required your support, right? It required pastoral support and it required therapy, like therapeutic support. And people are afraid of what they don't know. So if I know that I'm gonna be afraid of what I don't know, and I get to that place and you're vulnerable and open and raw, like, y'all need help.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's something great you just shared with them, because don't be afraid to admit that you need additional support. Because I think people say, oh, I got my breakthrough, that was great. And then they go back into the same cycle that they were before it happened. And they're like, well, breakthrough is temporary. No, breakthrough is a process.
Yeah.
Right? And like you said, process of being vulnerable, a process of being in a supported community, but also being honest about where you are on your journey.
Yeah. And you said it's a process, and it is, but I just thought about the wall, like breaking through the wall.
Yeah.
You don't stop after that.
Right.
It is still you don't start sitting on the bricks like, man, I made it.
Right.
You have to continue on with the journey.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a process. Add that to the
That's good.
part.
I think so. That's a process. Now that we're, really talking through what breakthrough looks like, we talked about the support. having the support that you needed to really work through the deepest part of your stories. And because there's multiple stories, like people say, I'm gonna tell my story. You have so many stories that we could work through. Like, what story you want? You want the story when I was 10, or you want the story when I was 16, or so asking yourself, what story do I want to share? Did you know before we started working on your story what was the root of some of the things that have been blocking you? So we always talk about traps, and they are invisible sometimes, and they are barriers to help, that stop us from crossing over to being the woman or the man that God called us to be. So when we were working through some of those traps, did you know, like, this was the trap that had held you bound for so long? How did you know? You know what I mean? Like, what was that?
Some, because it's more than one breakthrough. Some, yes, and I could see it. And I'm like, oh man, okay, here we go. All right. So I could prepare for it. I knew it was coming. And then some stuff just hit me. And depending upon, which part of the breakthrough it was, some of it was telling the whole truth. I lived so long telling partial truth because that's what was comfortable, not for me, because I'm living with it, but for everybody else. The story was already impactful, right? To talk about sexual abuse as a child, to talk about therapy, to talk about suicide, then talk about mental illness. Those are, and listen, that was the truth. Like those were the things that I was sharing. But the depth to those things is really what I needed to start talking about. And so when you look at even like when we went to South Africa, how I was able to tell, talk about rape and talk about sexual abuse within a culture where women are not considered on the same level as men. We can, argue about women and men here in America and other countries, but truly, the status of a woman is not the same there as here. And to have both women and men say, that was me too.
Yeah.
Right? Blew my mind. Yeah. But there were things that I shared there that I'd never shared before.
Exactly.
But it needed to be told then in that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like God brought me 10,000
miles. Right. To tell the story.
To tell the story and to have a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. But what's interesting about that moment in South Africa, and I remember you standing at the podium and beginning to share the story, but I saw the tears in the audience, people just in awe that you were so vulnerable to a community and in a country that you had never been before. Mm-hmm. But this land, these people had been prepared for you. Their ears were ready, their hearts were open, and there were things that you were able to say that they will never be able to speak out, but they know that if you can do it, and God would send a woman from America to come and say there's hope and there's peace and there's love even in what you've been through, was incredible for them. So they were breaking free even there and saying, you know what, man, I can't tell my story because I'm afraid of how it's gonna look on my family or how it's gonna impact other people. And people are living broken.
Yes.
They're living hurting. Yes. They are in the darkest places. And we can't reach them because they're afraid that if they tell their story, it's going to impact someone that they love.
Right. And for me to really open up, in full transparency, my abuser had to die. Like once my abuser died, I was able to tell a lot more of my story, although their actions have affected other people. So I'm still a little bit cautious because other people have been affected by this individual and they have a story that is theirs and theirs alone. So I have to make sure that I'm still protecting them. And I don't even know who all of them are, right? But I want to make sure that everyone is comfortable, that everyone feels safe, even though I am speaking my story, my truth, my experience in my life. So that's a part of it as well. I was dealing with what brokenness looks like and the other side of the breakthrough. And I had this image of, we always talk about the mosaic and the pieces and having, them being soldered back together. But that implies that you are then once again, you were once this solid piece and you were broken into pieces and now you've been resculpted into this solid piece. But I don't see it that way. Right. It's like, okay, when the new Barbies came out and they had joints that moved, right? It was kind of like, Like you're re-sculpted, you go from one still solid piece, but you're able to move differently. You're put back together, but you still need to be able to bend and move, and those joints are flexible versus being this rigid, re-sculpted being. That breakthrough, that freedom means you get to bend. You get to, kind of move and right, and sometimes you might just fall flat. Right. Right, but because you've been rebuilt, you can fall flat and not break. Whereas before, if you fell flat, you broke into a million pieces.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. But I love the flexibility of breakthrough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you can feel like you've overcome and you've gotten to this place where you are strong enough to share a story, only to discover that the more you share it, the more vulnerable you have to be.
Listen, yes.
And in being vulnerable, people now have this expectation. Oh, you're always the strong Kelly. I expect Kelly to show up strong every single day, not realizing that Kelly has to fight to be strong.
Right.
So that you can see her strong.
And I honestly hope that my face was still really puffy and like I've been crying for days. Like this is the other side of breakthrough. Unfortunately, my face kind of goes back to normal.
It's
like,
beautiful. That face.
And I was like, yeah, you're about to see all these puffy eyes, and I don't care. Like this, if I'm gonna show up, then this is what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
But this is what it looks like.
This is what it looks like. No, I love that. But I love that the fact that we can be transparent and say, you know what, this wasn't gonna happen.
Right.
Like today was not right. Today was not gonna happen. And you were like, do I really need to show up? And I'm like, huh? I'm like, which Kelly is this, right? I knew what Kelly it was. And I didn't go into a long drawn. I was like, yes, I really need you. And I'm going to sit next to you, right? Yeah. We're going to get through the story.
You did say that.
I said that. Well, I'm going to sit next to you.
And here we are, sitting next to each other.
Right. And walking through it because I understand that sometimes, being vulnerable, being strong means his strength is made perfect in our weakness. That means we're going to have days where we don't feel strong and we feel weak in our flesh, but his strength is radiating on you. So the word is working. It is. It is. So you have to even give our own self grace through breakthrough.
Yes. And that's all right.
Yep. And breakthrough is continual. So talk about continual breakthrough.
Woo! So, and I think that is a part of the reason why some people don't want to break through.
They don't. They be like,
because I know it's not just one.
Right.
Because once you break through, it's like when you got to go to the bathroom or bed, you hold it. You're like, no, because if I go on, I have to keep going. So I'm just going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. And then you go and you're like, oh, that was great. And you have to go again.
Right.
And you have to go again. Right. But it is better for you to go ahead and release all that. Just let it go. If you got to keep going back, just keep going back. Then to hold it, it will make you sick, right? Mm-hmm. Your body gets toxic.
Yeah.
Like that's real life.
Right.
And that is what a breakthrough is. Mm-hmm. If you hold on to whatever that thing is, you're sick, toxic, eating too much or eating not enough, stressing too much or stressing not enough. And I can say that comfortably because I'm still in the middle. I mean, okay, I was crying up until an hour and a half ago, right? But when I leave here, I don't know if the tears is coming back or not.
Well, the tears
can't come back. Of the breakthrough,
right.
of going through that thing, and that's okay. And I know that in order for me to really be free, I have to let it all go. Right? I can't hold on to it because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And it's not like I'm, and even if I were, I guess it would be okay, but I'm at home alone. I'm crying at home. And even the self-conversation, like the self-talk. Kelly, you being so dramatic. How about being dramatic by myself? Right? Like how is that even possible?
Nobody watching you.
Right? Yeah. Like why you got to, cry like that? Ain't nobody here. This is why I'm supposed to cry like that. Right. So even the self-talk will have you thinking that what you're going through is not real.
So the self-talk will talk you out of having your ugly cry.
Yes, which is a part of the breakthrough.
It is. It absolutely is. It's
you can't let all that go.
You can't. Right.
By yourself in your own house, mind your business. Like, right. You gotta let all of it go. You gotta let all of it go.
Let it go, girl. Let it go. No, let it go. I love that. So another thing I just want to talk about is when you are letting it go. then how do you support somebody else going through that? Because I think you talked about the community of support.
Mhm.
Because today might not be a great day for you, but I'm on it, right? And so tomorrow I might be like, Kelly, I'm going through it, right?
On my way.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's happened. I was like feeling overwhelmed. Like, are you sure? And then there's this moment, there's this calm that comes when you have the support of someone talking you through it, walking you through it to say, you know what, it's really okay. And I won't allow you to stay in that. Not all day. I'm like, no, we're gonna get cute. We're gonna come and tell and share, this story, because that's how important it is. So our breakthrough isn't always just about us.
It's never all about us.
Yeah.
It really isn't, because, and not that you have to share the breakthrough, right? But once you have gone through that process, you become a better person. So the people in your life, right, they get to receive the benefit of you being a better person.
Yeah.
So it's never for you. And everybody's not built to tell their story like this, right? You may get through your breakthrough and now you become more of a hugger, or you are able to, spot brokenness in someone else. You might be able to, whisper a positive word in someone's ear. Everybody on the other side of that growth comes out in a different way. For me, I can talk about emotions, or I can, talk about mental illness. That was not something I spoke about before. You guys knew. It's never something I've hidden, but I know, especially being Black, that is not something that Black folks talk about. Not only is it not something that we talk about, but we frown upon people that are considered weak, right? It is not a weakness for me to go through the challenges that I go through. I didn't ask for the situation that I was given. I didn't ask for the life that I was given, but this is what I was given, and this is how God made me. So if here I am crying, then I'm here crying in my house by myself.
Right.
I'm not being dramatic.
Right.
It is a necessary part of the process.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And it's a process for what's coming, right? For the next level. Like, you've been pouring out more. So in ministry, pouring out a community, that now you're a coach, you are a mental health wellness coach. You are helping people through their journey, right? So there's this expectation, there's something that you show up every time to pour into them, to help them. Like, you had to help yourself, right? And get the support you needed. You now are that support. So I love that God will take the very thing that we are afraid to give him, right? So God will use something that you've been going through, something that you keep hidden to yourself, that thing you don't want to fight through or cry through or break through. God's saying, I want that so that I can take what you have gone through and I can use it to be a help and a blessing to someone else who's having the same struggle and don't have the strength that you have. So, again, breakthrough isn't about you. It's about who God has assigned you to, that area of dominion, right? That you are assigned to work in, that you are supposed to be navigating through. And then he shifted you and made you an expert.
It blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. When people talk about your 5-year plan or even your 2-year plan, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have seen this. 5 years ago, no way. I was still trying to figure out how to take a shower every day. And I was still healthy, right? And someone would be like, how are you healthy not showering every day? Because it wasn't a part of my sick routine. And now that I am well, I'm still operating in ways that I did when I was sick because it's a part of my routine, right? And so sometimes we have to go back and evaluate and look at the things that we are continuing to do, even though we're better, because that's what you were used to when you weren't.
Yeah.
You raised a point about the me being an expert, right? And what that looks like and why it's different. And someone actually, a friend called and we were talking about coaching and they know my story. And the question was, well, how do I, go to a coach that openly, talks about the stress that they go through and still have, stress stomach and it still bothers them because I should be dead. So if I should be dead and all I'm dealing with is a stress stomach, I got you, right? Like that ain't nothing.
Right.
I'll be okay in a minute.
Right.
I need to do some deep breathing techniques, have a glass of water, and I'll be all right, because I shouldn't be here. So when we look at people and their stories, they're like, well, how can they help me in this place?
That's good.
Because when you look at what I've been through and where I've come from, I should not be this functional, for lack of a better word. I have an illness called borderline personality disorder. And I recently started doing more research into it, talk about breakthroughs, because that reached the point where I needed to go even deeper, right? I'm healthy. I am able to manage, my issues. I have my checklist of things I need to do. I am in the place of expert status, but I need to go deeper. I can't just rest where I am. And I was reading an article, and it said that a lot of medical professionals don't believe in telling people with this diagnosis that they have this diagnosis, that they live with this condition, because it's so detrimental to their being. So to learn that you have this disorder and it affects you in this way, they don't even want you to know, because simply by knowing, it makes the condition worse. So I was like, man, God, that's deep. That means the medical community basically writes off people that are in this position, that are dealing with this illness. And a lot of people will look at me and not know, and they might be like, Kelly funny, or I know she suffers from depression, or anxiety is the thing that she deals with. But this diagnosis, people don't have functional relationships, they have identity issues, and I did not know. I can look back on how I've told stories and conversations that I've had, and reading more about this illness, I verbatim have said things that the medical community says people with this illness will say. Like word for word, Latricia.
Wow. Never
knowing that this even existed over here, before even knowing about borderline personality disorder. Oversharing, and I talk about having superpowers sometimes. Like I'm classic, I overshare, y'all, clearly, right? So, but that is a symptom of the illness. So when we look at people and see them as deficient, it's all about perspective, right? Because I take that oversharing and I use it to help people.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not breaking down my shower. Like I am using that gift of oversharing to help save lives.
But I love it that you said it. It is actually not a deficiency, it is a superpower.
Yeah.
Because people need to hear authentic stories of someone who has been on the same journey and has overcome. So when you say clinically, I should not be doing these things, and you find yourself doing them, working against what medically you should not be able to do, and defying all the odds, there's a foundation in there that allows you to do that. What is that foundation?
Jesus.
Jesus,
I mean,
yes. right.
The blood
of Jesus. Really, yeah.
And that is so significant, right? And so when people say, I don't know, and people talk about Jesus and healing, and listen.
Tell them firsthand.
Listen.
Yeah.
There is no way, when I say that I shouldn't be here, my suicide attempt in 2013 left me in a state. I had an external pacemaker. I wasn't able to, I don't remember like the first week being in the hospital, because my body had broken down so much. Like I was successful, but I should not be here. So for me to be here and to be functional, right, to be walking amongst the people as if everything is okay, because everything is okay,
yeah.
Right? It is nothing but the grace of God and the blood of Jesus. Like there is, but therapy and medication, right? But given to me by God, because He created everything. And so we get caught up in that too.
Right.
Like I'm not taking no medicine, but you eat food. Food is medicine.
Right.
Like, and it is, again, about perspective. If you have too much salt, your blood pressure will increase. If you eat, ginger and turmeric, it, decreases inflammation. Like that's medicinal.
Right.
Right. So are leafy greens, and they don't tell you to eat them because they taste good.
Right.
They do if you cook them right.
Take out nutritional value.
Yeah. But it is medicinal.
Yeah.
It is healing to the body. So, sometimes, you need a little more leafy greens or stuffed in a pill that will help you get through this situation.
Yeah. But I couldn't imagine life without you.
Well, and I was on medication prior to my suicide attempt. right? So it is not like medication and therapy is a thing. I've been in therapy off and on since I was 9 years old. So these things are stable, parts of my life, right? There was an intervention that occurred in 2013 that allowed me to be here today. And that intervention was the conversation I had with God before I closed my eyes.
Yeah.
And closing my eyes, me being Kelly, I was like, I'm not sorry. Like cocky too, right?
You
like,
trying to tell God some stuff. He showed you.
And I can see myself just like, I'm not sorry. I don't want to be here. This is your fault that I'm here. But listen, your grace, and please, Father, if you find it within you to keep me with you, I want to spend eternity with you, right? I woke up. I was like, this is not what I meant. I did not mean keep me here. I meant keep me with you there with you. Like you. God
He said, I'm going to keep you.
Yeah, I'm going to keep you all right.
I'm going to keep you right here on earth. Get all that right.
Yeah, I'm
so
going to
that
keep you.
You still going to get eternity.
Yeah.
But we going to get some life.
You got some work to do in the meantime.
Right.
But even that process of recovery, of acquiescing to God, of saying yes, and begrudgingly, like I had no choice. We all have free will, and I don't want to get into that conversation, right? But I had no choice. Like you heard my prayer.
Right.
I knew that. That's why I was praying in that moment. And this was your answer?
Yeah. And so there is no question that every day you wake up, you know that God has an assignment for you.
Without a doubt.
And there's no turning back from that assignment.
Without a doubt.
Because that is the deal you made with God.
Yeah. Through the tears.
Through all of it. Through all the pain.
Yeah.
All the and the thing is that dealing with that, I think a lot of us have to understand, right? We can negotiate all of that. But at the end of the day, He has put something inside of us that He is going to get back. He is going to get it. Whether it means that there's some crushing that has to take place, whether that's, we're kicking and screaming going, but I just believe that God has placed His chosen, His called. And it's only a few of us, right? It's the few that will say yes willingly. It's a few that's going to really go forward and impact this kingdom in an incredible way. And we don't get to have excuses. We don't get to say, it's because of everything I've been through. We all got stories. I have stories that should have stopped me from showing up. But saying, you know what, God, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what you said in your way. And so even if I have to cry through it today, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do what you called me to do.
Play around if you want to.
Play again. God ain't playing with y'all.
No, not at all.
And that's what this whole movement is about. That's why Girl Get Your Breakthrough is so important. Right. And we have been, and it's so funny because we've been doing Girl Get Your Breakthrough underground, really.
Yeah.
We've just been going, we have been underground. We've been working that soil, pulling out the roots, right?
Yes.
And building a solid foundation. So now the movement is happening. Like this is the movement. And we're pulling forth the now woman. So tell them what it means to be a now woman in this new era for you. What does that look like for Kelly?
It is, it's beautiful. And even, disclosing that I've been crying, right? It is still beautiful. It is a journey and process and place that I could never have imagined being in. The sense of freedom, the ability to walk into a room and know that even though this situation is foreign, these people are foreign, this is outside of my comfort zone, that I am where I'm supposed to be. And I am confident and comfortable in me being me versus me representing my job or representing my ministry or representing my church. Just me being me. Being present. And we talk about that. You hear about being present a lot now and what that means to understand presence and being in the moment, but comfortably being right here, right now, right? Tomorrow will take care of itself, right? This moment right now is everything.
Yeah.
It is everything.
Right.
And to live as though this moment is everything. Mm-hmm. So when we show up with everything.
Yeah.
Because not only is tomorrow not promised, but later on today is not promised. And so if you're holding back, waiting, you might be waiting for something that will never come. Be here now. Be you now. Give now.
I love it. So that's her gift to you today. That's her gift. Kelly has come to you to give you the gift of now and being present in the moment and pushing past everything that you've been through, well, hey, how about you tell them? Why don't you tell your sisters why they have to go through the breakthrough and the significance of their now?
Ladies, it is imperative, beyond measure, for you to not only break through, but to continue on that journey. The breakthrough is the beginning. I'm going to be completely honest with you. The breakthrough is just the beginning. And there's going to be another breakthrough after this one, and another one after that one. That is why the journey is so important. That is why support systems are so important. That is why prayer is so important. It is why the community, right, is so important, because the breakthrough, the now, preparing for the next, requires that we do this together. If we are in this journey together, we can't be the only ones that's breaking through. It's impossible, because that means we're moving without you. So you have to break through, because you're a part of the movement, you're a part of the journey. And that's what's required of us right now, as now women, as now sisters, as a part of this Girl Get Your Breakthrough community. Girl, get your breakthrough.
Well, you heard it from Kelly. Your sister is here today. We just want to say thank you so much.
Always.
Thank you for girls coming on here, doing what you do, and just sharing authentically your story and actually the background to your story and why you're doing this incredible work that you're doing. And again, I will say it again. I could not imagine being on this journey. I can't imagine my life without you. And I'm so grateful that God had another plan. Because there's days that I just need Kelly. There's like, you know, those of you who know Kelly, it's like she gives like the best hugs. And there's times on this journey that I just need a hug from my sister to know that I can keep moving. And I think that you're such a gift. So even through the tears, you know, it's like I wanted to come over and say, well, what are we crying about? Like, what type of ice cream you need? I'm cheating today, right? And I don't care who know about, like, what we crying about? Like, let's do this together, you know, because that's how much you mean to me. And it's not a secret, but I thank you for pushing through that. I thank you for saying, you know what, I hear her say, I need you and I'm gonna show up. That's not always easy, but I love you for that. And I know that there are so many women who are going to be free from this conversation alone. And they're gonna be like, you know what, if God could do it for Kelly, then I know he could do it for me.
You can.
So thank you for being a testimony.
I love you.
Love you. Girl, go get your breakthrough.
Get your breakthrough.